What is up, guys? For this video I've got a little story to tell you about what happened to my turbocharged Dodge Dakota here behind me, which is now back at the house where it belongs. That caused it to not run. It caused the fuel pump to not work, and basically was the reason that the thing sat for so long without me being able to drive it or work on it. So I'm going to go around the truck and show you guys what happened to it, and just kind of rant about it because the truck is here. I've been able to fix it. I drove it around yesterday. Figured I would share this story with you guys. Last time I drove this truck before yesterday, I drove it actually up to the local car show and drove it up there, drove it back to my grandparents' house where I started, and the thing was running great, no issues really. And the next weekend after that I went to drive it and it wouldn't start because the fuel pump wouldn't work, which is kind of weird because it was running really well before I parked it. Well, I let the thing sit while I was working on the Monte Carlo because I didn't have space for both cars here, and I figured I would get the Monte Carlo done and then bring this thing back. But of course the Monte Carlo build is pretty much dead for now because that car's a rusty piece of junk. So I took that thing down to my grandparents' house and brought this thing back, and then yesterday I jacked it up and was going to try to pull the fuel pump and see if the pump was dead because I thought the pump had just died, or maybe see if a wire had popped off of it. And I was right when I was thinking it might have been a wire, but if you'll come down here, you can see there's a bunch of wires strung all over the place here. And I know it's kind of dark, but you can still kind of see there's just wires hanging down there, and there's wires hanging down here, and then there's a few like these here that I've put some butt connectors on. One of these wires has the butt connectors on it, is the wire for the fuel pump. So what happened while this thing was sitting at my grandparents' house was some sort of animal. We're not really sure if it was like a rabbit or maybe a woodchuck or a squirrel or something. It was something bigger. It wasn't a mouse or a rat because it didn't get inside the truck. It only ate stuff that was accessible from the ground outside of the truck. It didn't climb up on top of frame rails and really chew anything up or do anything. It was just that stuff that was in that harness right there, and as well as some little bits of the harness at the back. Like it ate up parts of the like rear wiring harness for my license plate lights and a couple of other things. And it ate the zip ties that were holding my little T-plugs for the trailer brake adapter thing. It ate the zip ties that were holding them up, so they're dragging on the ground. But yeah, the whole reason this truck was broken and sitting for so long was because some animal of some sort got underneath the truck and ate all my wiring. So I don't know how the first time I did jack the truck up once out there and started messing with it to see if I could figure out what was wrong with it. And I don't know how I missed the wiring harness being chewed up, unless maybe at that point, because it was only a week after the problem started, or it was like the first week after it was the first time I noticed, but the truck had only been sitting there for a week since the last time I had driven it. Maybe it wasn't chewed up as bad and the animal returned later on and chewed up and ate more of it afterwards, so it wasn't as noticeable that the wiring harness had been eaten up. As you guys saw, there's still pieces of the wiring harness I haven't put together. I have an ABS light, so a lot of the stuff for the rear ABS is all chewed up, which doesn't really matter because I have it bypassed anyway. The rear ABS module is completely disconnected from the brakes. I've just left it back there and plugged in so that I wouldn't have the light on my dashboard. The fuel sender reads all the way down at 0 right now, so that wire, or at least one of the wires for that, is chewed up. That thing didn't work either. But it's still disconnected. There's a couple things I haven't reconnected. I have no running lights. I have all of my brake lights but no running lights. So at night, if I turn my lights on, my rear tail lights aren't visible until I turn a turn signal on or hit the brakes. So I haven't found that wire yet, but I pieced enough of it back together for the fuel pump to work and for me to have brakes so that I could drive it around yesterday, and I did. I drove it around for about a half hour, just cruised around it, made turbo noises and all that stuff. The turbo's definitely upset still. I think I mentioned that a couple of times, that the turbo was consuming some oil, leaking oil. It doesn't seem to consume a lot of oil, but it definitely leaks a lot of oil. But you can smell oil burning off of it too when I'm driving, which I haven't really noticed until yesterday, but I could smell it yesterday. So it's definitely getting some into the exhaust, or it's burning off of the center, the core housing, or whatever it's called. But the truck is home and it runs again. I'm still going to be going and doing the whole fuel system before I really do anything else. So that new intake manifold's going to go on with the new injectors, the other fuel rails. I'm going to run new fuel lines, put the fuel cell in the bed. I will be using the same Walbro since it does still work. I was going to replace it only because I thought it was bad, or I was going to buy a new pump in case it was bad, because I didn't know at that point what the issue was with the pump, and it turns out to just be a wiring issue. So I'll be using the same Walbro 255, but we'll still be going with the 20-gallon fuel cell. I did do some measurements, and it will 100% fit in the bed, no problem. I had not driven this thing in a long time. This thing is so much fun. Unfortunately, as soon as I got it outside, it started raining, and this thing, with its little like 215 tires in the back, they're like 215 wide or something. They're little skinny all-season tires. It has no traction in the rain at all, and that's with it only making, well, it makes a lot of torque, but it doesn't make a lot of horsepower, and it would just start spinning and doing all kinds of crazy stuff in the wet. So. But even then, it was still fun to make turbo noises, and once the roads dried up a little bit after it quit raining, it was a lot of fun to, put it in second gear and get that little bit of turbo lag right before it starts spooling up. It's an awesome feeling. So, truck is back. I wanted to share that little story about some vermin eating all my wiring, and just kind of let you guys see the truck now that it's back home. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks we will begin working on this thing. I think this weekend I may drop the tank out of it, but since the truck runs and drives, I think I'm going to wait till everything is here before I take it apart. I'm not really sure. But next video we'll be working on the fuel system, getting the old fuel tank out and putting the fuel cell in, running the new lines, getting that setup done. After that we'll be doing probably exhaust, and then there's a couple of other little things I want to install. I want to put that new turbo on there after the exhaust setup is done, and I know it works because the exhaust setup is going to require some new oiling stuff as well. The engine's actually going to have to come out so that I can take the pan off or put a new pan on with a different bung on it, because I don't want to leave the old bung on it and cap it off and then have another bung further forward. I just think it's going to be ugly. It's going to bother me. Plus, it's one more place for it to leak, especially if the cap decides to rattle loose and come off. So I'm probably going to get a new pan, weld a new fitting to that, keep this pan around just in case I put another turbo one that ends up in that same spot. And then after that, I'll do a couple little things. I want to put a boost controller on it, 1-to-1 ratio FMU, because I'm going to put the stock fuel pressure regulator back on, and it doesn't have a boost reference. And then after that, this thing will be going back to get retuned, and we're going to see how much more power we can make with a really, really proper setup with a whole new exhaust, whole new fuel system, and a bigger intercooler and stuff. So that's going to be the end of the video, guys. This was a little bit short, but I just had to share that story with you guys and kind of show you that the truck is back, it is running, it is driving again. The whole time it was just a wiring issue, which is frustrating, but at the same time relieving, because now I know my stuff works and I've been able to drive the thing for the first time in like 3 months. Alright, since the video was so short, yesterday I finished putting the entire wiring harness together, and I figured I would just show you guys what it looks like all put back together and show you where I found most of the damage. Most of the damage was up front where I showed you guys, but there was some at the back also. So I'll show you that real quick, and then I'll just start the truck, let you guys hear it run for a little bit, and maybe rev it once or twice. I don't know, it's kind of early in the morning, so maybe not rev it, but I'll start it and let it idle for a little bit. Under here, as you can see, I got my classy green electrical tape all over this harness here, and I got it stuffed up on top of the frame. You might be able to see a little bit of it way up there. So it's just kind of hanging out. There's still some other zip ties up towards the back of the frame that are holding it up at the moment. It doesn't seem to want to go anywhere else, so I'm just going to leave it like that. I didn't reconnect every single wire in there. There were a bunch of wires for the ABS, and some of there's one that goes to the front brake proportioning valve, and there's a couple of them for the fuel level sender. I didn't hook any of those up just because I don't need them. They don't work anyway. I just hooked up stuff for all my lights and my fuel pump, and all the lights now work. Now the thing also ate up some wiring on the rear for my license plate lights, which license plate lights aren't a big deal, but they are required. So, let's get down here. Alright, I had to re-zip tie these little T plug adapters here for the trailer lights back into place. So I got those two tied back up, and then you can see that more green electrical tape running here. So whatever it was that ate all my wiring, ate the wires for these wires here, which are for the license plate lights. So I replaced them, lengthened them, and zip tied them up as well. And of course they run up here. I don't know how well you guys can see, but they run up there to the license plate lights. I was originally not going to fix the license plate lights because I want to go to the junkyard and get a whole harness anyway and fix it all the right way, but license plate lights are required. You can get pulled over for them, and I don't need any more reasons to get pulled over in this truck than I already do have. So I figured I would go ahead and fix all of the lights, get everything working right, and get it all tucked up, put out of the way so it's not dragging on the ground or isn't as easy for more animals to get to and munch on. So we'll just hop in, start it for a little bit, let it run for a little bit, and I'll probably have to step outside once it's running because the thing's stupid loud, and that'll actually be the end of the video there. Alright. Been a minute since I've driven stick, actually. I haven't driven stick in well over a month, basically, because I sold the black Dakota. But here we go. Fuel pump primed. Wideband is on. And there we go. You can still hear it rumbling through the wall here on the garage, but the Dakota runs again. I'm going to leave it here as it is pretty much until I go ahead and start putting the new fuel system stuff in, which will be not this weekend, but maybe the weekend after. We'll start working on that stuff. Well, I was going to tear it apart this weekend, but since it's running again, I'm going to wait till all the parts are here and then start taking it apart. But the truck runs again, drives again. I can enjoy it for a little bit before we start messing with the fuel system. The thing is still just as fun to drive as it was before. So yeah, that's going to be the end of the video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all later.